If you'd asked me a year ago, I'd have told you I was one of the lucky ones. Daniel Hayes, 38 years old, senior financial advisor at one of the most respected firms in the city. I had a steady career, a solid reputation, and a home that felt like something worth coming back to. And at the center of it all was Lena, my wife, 31. Graceful in the way quiet rain is graceful, subtle, constant, grounding. The kind of woman who could walk into a room and make it feel softer without saying a word. I used to think she was my greatest investment. Not because of how she looked, though she could have stopped traffic on any given day, but because of how she made me feel settled. Like all the restless years before her finally had a reason to calm down. I'd grown up watching my father work himself into the ground just to keep our family steady. He used to say, "A man's peace is the roof he builds for someone else." And I believed him. Every decision I made, every late night at the office, every careful budget, every choice was about building that peace. For the first few years, it seemed to work. We had a 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood where the lawns all looked freshly combed, and the mailboxes were never dented. Our neighbors waved from their driveways. They saw us as the couple who had it figured out. The smiling photos at barbecues, the matching holiday sweaters, the easy laughter echoing off front porches. Even our fights were small, forgettable, little misunderstandings that ended with her brushing my arm and saying, "I hate when we argue." And I'd smile. Because who could stay angry at someone who said it like that? I thought we were solid. I thought love was supposed to feel predictable, like steady returns on a safe investment. But the truth about perfect is it hides things too well. It started small. A new perfume. Something floral. Sharper than her usual scent. I noticed it one morning as she kissed me goodbye, something elegant, deliberate. When I asked where it came from, she said, "A sample from the mall," and laughed. No reason to question it. But I did notice how it lingered longer each week. Then there were the calls she didn't take, the texts she'd glance at, then lock her phone as if they were nothing. The dinners where conversation turned from us to her vague descriptions of just a long day. I told myself not to overthink it, that she was tired or distracted, that maybe marriage just settled into quiet. That's what I told myself. But the thing about men like me, the ones who deal in numbers, patterns, risk, is that we can't unsee inconsistencies. And suddenly, I started noticing every one of them. Her laughter, once easy, felt forced. Her eyes, once warm, seemed to look through me instead of at me. When I reached for her hand on the couch, she'd pull away just enough to make it look accidental. It's strange how love changes form. At first, it fills every corner of your life, like sunlight spilling through an open window. Then, when something goes wrong, it doesn't vanish. It just reverses. You start seeing the same details, the same gestures, but through a darker lens. The way she hums while cooking doesn't sound sweet anymore. It sounds like distraction. The late-night showers that once meant self-care now look like someone washing away guilt. And every time her phone lights up, it feels like the flicker of a match before a house burns down. I'd lie awake some nights, watching her sleep beside me. The woman who used to press her cold feet against mine just to make me laugh now slept turned away. A few inches that felt like miles. I kept asking myself what changed. Was it me? Did I stop being interesting? Did I get too comfortable? Too predictable? But the thing about change, it rarely happens overnight. It's slow. A quiet leak that rots the foundation long before the walls show cracks, and I started to feel it. That quiet rot. The distance you can't measure but can feel. The tension you can't name but can't escape. I'd come home from work to a spotless house. Dinner warm. Lights dimmed just right. Everything perfect. But perfection started to feel like performance. Like I was living inside a picture she no longer wanted to be part of. And the worst part wasn't anger. It was confusion. Because I couldn't fix what I couldn't define. There's a line every man crosses in silence, the moment when you stop trusting your partner and start trusting your instincts. For me, that moment came one evening as I watched her get ready to meet a friend. She stood in front of the mirror in a new dress. Hair pinned just so. Perfume heavy enough to make the air feel expensive. She smiled at her reflection. Not at me. And that was when the voice inside me whispered something I didn't want to hear. She's not dressing up for you anymore. That's when I realized something had shifted subtle. Invisible. Irreversible. Somewhere between the mortgage payments and her new perfume, I'd stopped recognizing the woman I came home to, and deep down, I knew, whatever this was, it wasn't love anymore. It was a story waiting to break. At first, I told myself it was just stress. Everyone hits a rough patch, long hours. Short patience. Missed calls. That's marriage. Right. But when you spend your life analyzing numbers, sooner or later, your brain starts mapping everything. And when something doesn't add up, you feel it before you see it. The first inconsistency came on a Tuesday. Lena texted that she had a dentist appointment at noon and might run late. When I came home that evening, she smiled, said the procedure went fine, and complained about a sore jaw. Seemed believable enough, but the next morning, while sorting receipts for my expense report, I noticed a charge on our joint card. Riverside Bistro. 103p. M. 2 entrees. 2 glasses of wine. Total $78. See sheer. My first instinct wasn't jealousy. It was arithmetic. Lunch for one doesn't come with 2 drinks. Still, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she met a friend. Maybe she just didn't mention it. That's what I told myself. But once a man starts questioning the story, he starts keeping records. Whether he means to or not. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing patterns. Her work lunches stretched from 1 hour to 3. Her quick errands turned into whole afternoons. And every time she came home, she'd head straight for the shower. I used to think that was a quirk. Now it felt like ritual. She'd leave the house smelling like jasmine and come back smelling like something else. Something warm. Heavy. Unfamiliar. And that perfume I'd once found irresistible started to choke me. Her phone, once left on the counter without a second thought, became a permanent extension of her hand. Always face down. Always locked. The sound of a notification became the background music of our evenings. And the strange thing was, she never seemed happy to see them. Just nervous. Alert. Like someone guarding a secret instead of receiving good news. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because logic told me that emotion, clouds, judgment, and if I was right, if something was happening, I'd need clarity more than anger. So I did what I do best. I documented dates, times, durations. If she said she was at the gym, I noted when she left and when she returned. If she mentioned meeting her sister, I made mental timestamps. At first, it felt insane, paranoid, obsessive. But then, I'd find another mismatch. A text that came through during a supposed yoga class. A receipt from a place she swore she'd never been. The picture forming wasn't complete. But it was getting sharper by the day. She stopped asking about my work. Stopped leaving little notes in my briefcase like she used to. The kind that said, "Don't forget to eat lunch. Love you." Now, she forgot I existed between breakfast and dinner, and every night, as she scrolled through her phone in silence, I studied her face like a spreadsheet, trying to reconcile what I was seeing with what I believed. Some nights, I'd convince myself I was wrong, that I was imagining things, that maybe she was just bored. Maybe we'd drifted apart. Then I'd look at the numbers again, the receipts, The times. The days she suddenly had new clothes I didn't recognize, and all that doubt would vanish. Because patterns don't lie. People do. I remember one night in particular. She'd said she was working late, covering a co-worker's shift. But when she came home, there was no exhaustion in her eyes, just a faint trace of wine and something floral that wasn't hers. I hugged her. Gently. And she flinched like she'd forgotten what that felt like. And that was the night the illusion broke. Because love, when it's true, doesn't make you feel like a detective in your own home. I started spending more time alone in my office, pretending to work while the walls around me filled with silent questions. I'd replay every moment, every conversation, trying to find the first lie. Was it last month, last year, or had it always been there, hidden behind her smile? It's a dangerous thing, realizing your life might be a performance. Because once you see the cracks, you can't stop noticing them. Her tone when she said my name, the way she answered "love you too" a second too late, the way she smiled when she thought I wasn't looking at nothing. Or maybe at someone who made her feel something I no longer could. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. Just aware. And awareness, once it takes root, grows into something unstoppable. So I started checking bank statements more carefully. Her gas receipts, even the mileage on her car. Little details. Little numbers. And together, they told a story I didn't want to believe. She wasn't just distant. She was elsewhere. And the woman who once filled my home with warmth had turned it into a crime scene without ever saying a word. The evidence was still circumstantial. No smoking gun. No confession. Just numbers. Dates. Times. And a sinking certainty in my gut. But I knew myself. And I knew where this was heading. So I did what any man who's been lied to does. I went looking for the truth. Once you decide you can't trust her words, you start trusting the data. That's how I found myself one Thursday afternoon staring at the website of a private investigator named Ray Cross. His tagline read, "Truth costs less than lies." I remember thinking how simple that sounded, and how expensive the truth was probably about to become. I called him from my car during lunch break. My voice didn't shake. It didn't break. It was calm the way it always is when I'm about to expose a fraud. "Mr. Cross," I said, "I need to know where my wife goes when she says she's at work." He asked for details the way a surgeon asks about symptoms. Description. Schedule. Vehicle. Habits. He didn't ask why. He already knew. Men don't hire him because they're paranoid. They hire him because they've already done the math, and the numbers point to betrayal. We arranged a retainer, a start date, and by Friday morning, Lena Hayes had become the subject. That day, while I sat in a conference room reviewing quarterly forecasts, my phone buzzed. Ray Cross. Subject. Left residence. Un-0. Undo. A. M. In silver Lexus. Destination, Riverfront, Cafe. I tried to ignore it, to stay focused on the meeting. But every word my colleagues said dissolved into static. Then another text came through. Seated with male. Mid-20 seconds. Athletic build. Body language suggests intimacy. Documenting with photos. And that was it. 4 years of marriage, reduced to one message. I left the meeting without an explanation. Just said I wasn't feeling well and drove aimlessly until I ended up parked at a gas station. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. But my voice when I finally spoke was flat. "Keep following." I texted back. At 1:43 p.m. Another message. Subjects exiting cafe. Holding hands. Male kissed her cheek before separating. Following both vehicles. By 2:15. The final blow. Checked into Midtown Hotel. Room 214, under male's name. Video confirmation of kiss before entry. I stared at the text until the words blurred. Then I put my phone face down on the passenger seat and just sat there, breathing through the hollow that had opened inside me. You always think you'll explode when you catch someone lying. You imagine screaming, smashing something, demanding answers. But the truth is quieter than that. It lands like a scalpel. Not a hammer. Precise. Surgical. Irreversible. When Ray emailed me the footage later that night, I opened it alone in my office. 23 seconds. That's all it took. Lena in a sundress I'd bought her. Smiling. Reaching for a man's hand across a restaurant table. Leaning in. Laughing in a way I hadn't heard in months. Then the kiss. Slow. Familiar. Not the kind of kiss you give a stranger. The kind of kiss you practice. 4 years of marriage. Vows. Trust. Late night talks about our future, all reduced to 23 seconds of video. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't even cry. I just watched it on repeat. And with every frame, another piece of me stopped caring. There's a strange peace that comes with confirmation. The guessing ends. The pretending dies. You stop living in theories and start living in evidence. I replayed the moment where she smiled at him. There was no guilt there. No hesitation. That was what broke me, not the act. But the ease of it. After a while, I minimized the window and opened the folder Ray had attached. Photos. Receipts. Timestamps. Tuesday. 1:2:4. 7 p.m. Lunch. Wednesday. 3:1:6 p.m. Hotel entrance. Thursday. 5:3:2 p.m. Gym parking lot. Same man. A pattern. Consistent. Organized. Almost professional. He even had a name, Ethan Cole. 27 years old. Personal trainer. Of course. A cliché wrapped in muscle. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent my whole career identifying risk, detecting fraud, saving other people's assets from deception. Yet I hadn't seen the one taking place in my own home. But self-pity never helped anyone. So I did what I always do when faced with a crisis. I started planning. By midnight, I'd saved every file, labeled each document, and printed hard copies for safekeeping. There was no rage left, just process. Just steps to follow. I made coffee, sat in silence, watched the steam rise, and thought about how easily two lives can diverge without a sound. You think you'll know the moment love dies. But it's never loud. It's not a shout. It's the slow closing of a door you didn't realize was open, and sitting there, watching her betrayal framed in pixels. I realized something. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears a suit. When a man finally accepts the truth, something inside him changes. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's a quiet shift, a cooling of the blood, a sharpening of thought. That's where I was. The storm had passed. And in its place came clarity. Cold. Clinical clarity. I wasn't planning revenge. I was executing an audit, Monday morning. I called Margaret Voss, the best divorce attorney in the city. And, according to a colleague, the kind of woman who can make a man wish he'd never cheated before she even files the papers. Her assistant fit me in that same afternoon. I sat across from her desk, surrounded by glass walls and quiet power. She didn't waste time on sympathy. Didn't ask how I felt. She just opened a legal pad and said, "Tell me what you have." So I did. Every timestamp, every photo, every detail that Ray Cross had collected. She reviewed them silently, flipping through each page with surgical precision. Finally, she looked up and said, "This is ironclad." You'll keep the house. Your savings. Your accounts. She'll leave with nothing. There, it was the first breath of relief I'd felt in months. For the first time in a long while, I said quietly, "I feel calm." "Not happy?" she asked. I shook my head. "Just clear." We spent the next hour mapping out every step. Asset protection. Document transfers. Account freezes. I learned that love might cloud judgment. But paperwork never lies. By the time I left her office, I knew exactly how the end would play out down to the minute. My first stop was the bank. The same one where Lena and I had opened a joint account 4 years earlier. Funny how something that once symbolized unity now felt like a liability. I met with Robert, my financial advisor. He'd managed my portfolio for years. "Robert," I said, "I'm filing for divorce. I need every asset protected before she knows." He didn't look surprised. Maybe he'd seen it before the quiet men who walk in calm and leave untouchable. Within the hour, my accounts were split, my salary redirected, and every card she could touch was canceled. Even her luxury card, the one I'd added her to for convenience. I closed it without a second thought. Each action brought a strange satisfaction, like tightening bolts on a structure you once thought was falling apart. Every signature was a step away from chaos. Every cancellation a piece of freedom reclaimed. That evening, I went home and sat at the same table where we'd once planned our future. The house was silent, sterile, like it was holding its breath. She was upstairs, probably texting him, completely unaware that every privilege she'd taken for granted was dissolving beneath her. I didn't feel guilt, just precision. I logged into my laptop, opened a spreadsheet, and started tracking the money I'd spent on her since our wedding day. Vacations, clothing, car payments, spa memberships, eBay Bashaliomayuan. 0 inches 4 years. I stared at the total. It wasn't just a number. It was a ledger of misplaced trust. I poured a drink and whispered to no one in particular. I built this life. She just decorated it. The next morning, I changed every password: banking, utilities, emails, even the Wi-Fi. Each click of the keyboard was another lock snapping shut. Then, I called the private investigator one last time. "Thank you, Ray," I said. "Your job's done. I'll handle it from here." He paused. "You gonna confront her?" "Not yet," I replied. "First, I need everything lined up. I'm not giving her a single second to think." That was the accountant in me talking, not the husband. The husband had been buried the moment I watched that 23-second video. I spent the next few days moving like a machine. Methodical, unemotional, efficient. Every document filed. Every account balanced. Every loose end tied down. The woman who'd spent half a year lying to me was about to face the full weight of someone who never missed a decimal. I could have confronted her that night. Could have yelled, accused, demanded an explanation. But that would have given her power a stage to play the victim. Instead, I gave her silence. And silence, I've learned, is the most disciplined form of control. She still smiled when she saw me in the evenings. Still kissed me goodnight. Her lips carrying someone else's ghost. And I let her. Because, in less than a week, her world would collapse quietly. Legally. Permanently. People think vengeance is chaos. But real vengeance, intelligent vengeance, is order restored. When I finally put the last document in the folder marked Final Draft, I sat back and looked around my office. Everything was in its place. For the first time in months, I whispered, "I feel like myself again." And I did. Not the man who'd been betrayed. Not the fool who'd trusted too much. But the man who built something from nothing and knew exactly how to dismantle it when someone tried to take it away. The night before I ended my marriage, I slept better than I had in months. There's a strange calm that comes when every piece of the puzzle is in place when you've stopped hoping, stopped doubting, and finally accepted the truth for what it is. By morning, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I was ready. She came home around 5, shopping bags in hand, perfume heavy in the air, humming a tune that didn't belong in this house anymore. Lena looked radiant, like someone walking through a life that wasn't hers to keep. She set her bags on the counter, smiled, and said, "You're home early." And that's when she saw it, a manila folder sitting on the granite countertop. Her smile faltered. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her and waited. She tried to recover. That soft, a familiar laugh that used to make me forgive everything. "What's this?" she asked. Pretending curiosity. "The truth," I said quietly. For a moment, the house went still. Even the hum of the refrigerator sounded distant. She opened the folder. Out spilled photographs, receipts, printed text messages, time-stamped reports, 23 seconds of video stills her and Ethan Cole, hand in hand, laughing, kissing, every lie laid out like an autopsy. Her voice broke first. "Daniel, I don't," I said, calm, cold, controlled. "Every time you open your mouth, another lie comes out. So let's skip that part." She stood frozen, staring at the photos, her hands trembling. Her mascara started to run. And for a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You didn't just cheat on me," I said, my voice steady. "You stole from me my trust, my peace, my time. And those are things you don't get back." She shook her head, words tumbling out between sobs. "It wasn't like that. I was lonely. You were always working. I made a mistake. Daniel. Just one mistake. One mistake," I repeated softly, stepping closer. "That's not what 6 months of hotel receipts say. That's not what those texts sound like." Her knees buckled. She dropped to the floor, clutching the papers as if she could somehow rewrite them with her tears. "Please. I'll stop seeing him. I'll do anything. We can fix this." I looked down at her, the woman I once loved more than anything, and felt nothing. No rage. No sadness. Just the hollow satisfaction of finally being done. "The man you married would have forgiven you," I said. "The man standing here doesn't exist anymore." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "You used my money, my house, my life to fund your affair. You came home from his bed and kissed me goodnight. You lied every single day." Her crying turned frantic. "I love you. Daniel. Please. Don't throw this away. You already did." I replied. I pointed to the folder. "Those are the divorce papers. Filed this morning. Margaret Voss handled everything." Her eyes widened. "You can't be serious. I'm done being anything else." She started to panic then, like a trapped animal. "Where will I go? I don't have savings." That's not my problem," I said. "Freedom comes with a price. And tomorrow morning, you'll wake up free. Daniel, please, don't beg. It doesn't suit you." She fell silent, sobbing into her hands. For years, that sound would have broken me. Now, it just echoed through the empty shell of the home she'd destroyed. I picked up the ring from her side of the counter, the one she'd taken off sometime during those hotel visits, and set it on top of the folder. "You can keep the jewelry," I said. "Everything else stays here. The car, the credit cards, the life I built. You've already used up your share." Her voice was small now, almost childlike. "Is there really nothing left to say?" "There's nothing left to fix," I answered. "This isn't anger, Lena. It's balance." She tried one last time. "We can go to therapy. We can start over." I shook my head. Therapy doesn't bring back respect. And starting over only works when you haven't already set fire to the foundation. She just stared at me, realizing, maybe for the first time, that there was no act left to perform. The mask she'd worn for months had cracked. And behind it, there was only fear. I turned toward the door. You have until tomorrow to pack whatever you need. After that, the locks change. She didn't move. Just whispered, I'm sorry. I know. I said, and I hope one day you realize what that word's worth after the damage is done. I walked away, leaving her alone in the silence she'd created. For a moment, I paused at the doorway. Looking back at the life I was leaving behind, then I understood something deeper than anger or revenge. Closure isn't something you ask for. It's something you take back when the lies finally stop mattering. And that's exactly what I did. The divorce moved faster than I expected. Margaret Voss handled everything with precision, motions filed, signatures gathered, court date set. By the time the ink dried, it was over. 3 weeks. That's all it took to dismantle 4 years of marriage. Lena didn't contest. Maybe she knew she had no ground to stand on. Maybe she just didn't have the fight left in her. She left the house quietly. No grand scene. No final plea. Just a small suitcase. A tear-streaked face. And the faint smell of the perfume that once filled our home. She moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Cheap rent. Peeling paint. A place where silence echoes louder than memory. Her friends stopped calling. The gym membership expired. The smiles disappeared from her social media. Her world got smaller. Mine got quieter. I changed the locks, repainted the walls, and donated every piece of her that lingered. The photos came down. The furniture shifted. The house breathed again, for the first time in months. I came home to peace that didn't feel forced. No lies waiting behind the front door. No shadows trailing through the hallways. It was strange how silence used to feel empty. But now it felt earned. It wasn't loneliness anymore. It was clarity. Most nights, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and nothing but the sound of the clock ticking. Each tick, a reminder that time doesn't stop for heartbreak. It just moves on without asking permission. I didn't celebrate. There was no victory toast. No satisfaction in her downfall. Justice isn't joy, it's balance. And balance had been restored. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if she ever thinks about what she lost. Not the house, or the comfort, or the security, but the man who would have done anything for her. Then I remind myself it doesn't matter, because I've learned something most men don't until it's too late. Peace isn't found in what you build with someone. It's found in what you rebuild alone. When a woman betrays you, it's never just about another man. It's about that one silent moment when she looked at everything you built, the home, the loyalty, the sacrifices, and decided it wasn't enough. That realization changes you. It hardens something inside. But it also clears your vision. Because once you've seen someone trade truth for temptation, you can never see them the same way again. I used to think strength was holding on. Now I know it's letting go before the poison spreads any further. People talk about revenge like it's fire. But real justice isn't about heat. It's about stillness. It's balance restored. And sometimes, the most powerful sound in the world is silence. The silence of not calling her back. The silence of not explaining yourself. The silence of a man who's finally done with the chaos. You don't owe closure to the person who broke you. You owe peace to the man you're becoming. So don't build your life around someone who's still deciding if they want to be in it. Don't chase validation from someone who already showed you what you're worth to them. Walk away. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started respecting yourself more. Justice isn't revenge. It's clarity. And sometimes, walking away with your dignity is the loudest victory of all. Have you ever seen someone mistake your kindness for weakness, only to regret it later? Share your thoughts below. And if this story hit home, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about truth, strength, and the quiet power of walking away, because calm isn't surrender. It's power.